This is the 2024 schedule release special on CBS News Baltimore.
And the schedule's been released. Hello, and thank you for joining us on CBS News Baltimore. It is our Ravens schedule release special. I'm Mark Viviano, joined by Rick Ritter and Alex Glaze. 17 games over 18 weeks. 9 on the road, 8 at home. We already knew about the opener, the showcase opener on September 5th against the Super Bowl champs at Kansas City. Now we know the rest, and I think most of you out there probably know by now if you're really interested. We're going to go over it with you, but let's first get some impressions of what you've seen as far as this pathway to the end of the season for the Ravens.
I'll tell you what, from the very beginning, it's a gauntlet. Let's call it what it is. They're going up against 10 playoff teams from last season, a number of primetime games. I think it's safe to say that the NFL likes Lamar Jackson. We know that, but they also like Derrick Henry, so they're going to get their fair share of opportunities to play in front of that national audience. Gauntlet is the one word that comes to mind for me.
Two things stand out to me. I'm going to need to up my television subscriptions.
Yes,
and everybody else.
If I want to tune into to these Ravens games and other games across the league, and also, like you mentioned, that gauntlet, but specifically the end of the season after the bye. It's just brutal. 3 games in 10 days. I mean, I know we're going to get into that, but just a rough stretch to end the season.
Yeah, and what Alex is referring to, I mean, if you're old like me, you're used to there just being Sunday football games with the occasional Monday night.
Yeah.
As I count it, the Ravens will play on 5 different days of the week on 6 different networks.
Wow.
That's 2024.
Yep.
It is 2024. You're right. The better you are these days, the more opportunities you're going to get, and the wilder your schedule is going to be all over the place.
And with those Christmas Day games now, the NFL trying to bump, the NBA and kind of take over that day, that falling on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's when we're talking about those 3 games in 10 days. I mean, that is kind of what throws the wrench in things.
Right. In case you didn't hear, that came out today. So Netflix is now the Christmas Day carrier of an NFL doubleheader, and this year it will include the Ravens, and December 25th, Christmas Day, is a Wednesday. So the Ravens are going to play the at Houston on a Wednesday, and to accommodate that, they're playing the previous Saturday against the Steelers. It's say what you want about this is all about the money.
Yeah.
It's all about getting the eyeballs on the product, and it's about Netflix probably paying hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. But I do want the league, just to be honest, in their push for player safety, don't pile these games on these guys and justify it and say you care about player safety.
Yeah,
right.
Just be honest, okay? Because that's not honest when you say we're all about player safety, but they're going to play 3 games in 10 days.
10 days.
Yeah.
That's just dishonest. Say it's all about the money, everybody's making money, and then we'll understand it. But to suggest that this is about player safety is just a lie. It's a lie because you wouldn't do that if it was about player safety.
And on from the Ravens' perspective too, having that Steelers game sandwiched in there. I mean, the Giants coming off the bye, that's one thing. But then having to play the Steelers at home and then travel on the road to play the Texans on that Wednesday, on Christmas Day, that's just brutal.
I mean, look at those
Steelers
3
games.
teams, too. I mean, of course, there's no cakewalk in the NFL, but those are physical games. Pittsburgh is always physical. Cleveland on the back end, that's physical as well in terms of how you're going to end the season. Houston, which was
a
tough team last year. They're only going to be better this season. 3 games in 10 days. Mark, you nailed it. As a fan, you're loving it. You hear, Christmas game, great. I can sit down, I can watch it with the family. From a player safety standpoint, and if, we had Torrey Smith sitting up here, Kadri, Ray Rice, whoever it is, they would tell you that that's ridiculous. You're just asking somebody to get hurt at that point. I don't think any of us have ever said 3 games in 10 days. Has that ever even happened in the NFL before? It's got to be a first.
I think during COVID, because of some switching schedules, that might have been an emergency situation at different times. But to schedule it outright, this is how it's going to be. Again, you're right. Fans love it. Fans just want a lot of it and then more. And they want it more often and always.
Right.
And it is a desirable product. Nobody's doubting the popularity of it. And that's fine. Make all your money, but stop saying that player safety is important, because it's not when you do this.
Yeah.
It's just not. I'm not the old man complaining here. I'm just demanding honesty.
No, I'll tell you
That's
what.
dishonest.
This conversation and the points that you're bringing up right now, wait till this stretch comes. I guarantee that this topic will be the talk of every nationwide sports show with football. 3 games in 10 days. Everybody will be talking about it.
Absolutely, especially when we look at that being at the end of the season as well. And if we're hoping this season goes the way that last season went, that last push could really mean something. And then those 3 games in 10 days, you never know what can happen from an injury perspective, and just only bad things can happen.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. And you guys both noted the gauntlet at the start of the season. When you're talking about the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, home against the Raiders, which could be a respite. We don't know who's going to be what early on and later on. But then you go to Dallas and then you get Buffalo. What is notable about this is that 3 of those 4 are formidable offenses. And you're talking about a new defensive coordinator and a lot of changes overall on a roster, the Ravens roster, that made it to that AFC title game, that we're going to see what they are as they ramp up. And this is going to be the early fire to get some idea. And we know this every year. Whoever you are, when you see this schedule in September, is going to be a much different team by the time you get to the end of it.
Absolutely. I'm that first game, just the one that stands out to me in Kansas City, because I know that when that got released earlier in the week, everyone kind of was looking at that as a potential revenge spot for the AFC Championship game, and I completely disagree with that. I could not have rolled my eyes harder when I saw all the tweets rolling in talking about revenge and this and that. The Ravens could beat the Chiefs by 17 points. And you know what? It's just another September football game. I mean,
there you go. I'm glad you're saying it.
It would matter. It, of course, would matter. But it is not the AFC Championship game. And guess what? You're also going to have to sit through and watch the Chiefs go through that whole pregame ceremony, raising a banner because they won a Super Bowl.
And look, you're a true fan, born and raised here, you're from here, you've been with this team from the very beginning, and I'm glad that you're saying that because I think that is something that many fans are going to echo this year. We've seen it all in the regular season. Heck, we've even seen it early on in the postseason. Until you get to the Super Bowl, it's kind of like, we don't want to hear about it. I mean, of course, we want you to do well. We want you to be in that great position to get there, but this is a big year for this team. Put up or shut up. They got to get over the hump this year. A lot is on the line.
All right, got to ask you this. The Commanders are the closest team geographically. Yep. Next would be the Eagles, who come to Baltimore twice. Preseason and regular season Eagle visits. I know a guy from that area. What is this going to do to the Ritter family?
Oh, are you kidding me? You know who we're rooting for? Come on.
I know you're rooting for it. But are you going to have to accommodate visitors?
Oh, the phone was already blowing up tonight. 15, 20 texts. People have been waiting for the schedule to come out. Philadelphia, on paper, guys, always one of the best teams, especially the past couple of years. But the key words there, on paper. Can they put it together at the end of the year? Can Jalen Hurts show up in those big moments? Can they protect him at the right time? Can the defense step up? That's going to be a heck of a matchup in December. We talk about that gauntlet there, especially at the end. That's another game that's thrown in there in December for the Ravens. Another physical game against a great team.
And as we look at the AFC North matchups, which are every year you play everybody twice, what is notable going into 2024 is this. Who the Ravens played in their division last year, each of those teams are going to have a different quarterback because their starter was hurt, or they just changed out quarterbacks like the Steelers did in bringing in
Russell
Wilson, and they got Justin Fields on that team as well. So who knows what combination you're going to face. All of a sudden, the AFC North is a quarterback league. It was always the division of grind it out tough. And there's still aspects of that, don't get me wrong here. But you got some quarterbacks in this
Every team's got a quarterback
division
now.
Yeah, you're right. Every team does have a quarterback now. What used to be an issue is no longer, especially in that division. And Cincinnati, a team who obviously Joe Burrow banged up last year, with him being back healthy. Cincy's a heck of a ball club, guys. You both know that. So those games, we talk about physicality, especially in the AFC North, and an improved, healthy Cincinnati team.
And as you look at that Monday night matchup there with the Chargers, you knew that was prime time. So it's the Harbaugh brothers back together out in Los Angeles this time. And not just the Harbaugh brothers, but a Chargers team that has borrowed heavily from the Ravens' bloodlines. Not just Jim, but your general manager, your starting center, 2 of your running backs, a tight end,
Offensive line
too.
coach, right?
Yeah.
Did the offensive line coach go over there?
There you go.
I mean, they
West Coast Ravens.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that that's not the Thanksgiving game. I really wanted that one on Thanksgiving.
It was once before. The first one was.
I wanted the Ravens to just spend all their holidays just, entertaining me. That's what I wanted. But, so that's going to be a good one, though. I mean, Justin Herbert getting some weapons, Losing Keenan Allen, though, that's going to be big for them. But, man, the schedule is just, I think they have, the second toughest schedule in the league is what I saw?
Makes sense.
By winning percentage of opponents, yes. Second toughest, and they play the most games against teams that were in the playoffs last year. They have 10 games against teams that were in the playoffs in 2023. Now, again, let's be honest about this. You can say what you want about what these teams look like now based on last year, but nobody's the same as they were the year before, including the Ravens. The team that the Ravens took to the AFC title game is a very different team. Yes, they still have Lamar Jackson, and they've got Mark Andrews back healthy. They've got, and they've added Derrick Henry. They're good. Yeah. But you can't. It's always been a mistake to say what they were in 2023, they line up in 24. No, they're different. The average NFL roster turns over 25%. And for the Ravens, it was even more. So, yeah, it's different.
And you talk about that continuity, too, especially on the offensive line. And the offensive line last year that had trouble protecting Lamar Jackson in key moments. It's going to take some time for this offensive line to gel. And also, one of the things that we can touch on a little bit later, we keep talking about the gauntlet at the end of the season, the 3 games in 10 days. Something that I will be monitoring all throughout the season, as they should have been regardless, is Derrick Henry's touches and trying to somehow keep him fresh, if you will, towards the end of the season.
Getting Keaton Mitchell back, which will be nice. Did they add? I think they added another running back. I'm drawing a blank.
It's key. I don't think if they did in the draft.
Drafted one.
Marshall,
Yes.
I think.
Okay. But
And Justice Hill too, who will be that change
Justice
of pace
Hill,
guy
yep.
again.
All right, guys. By the way, I think you mentioned this, but just in case we didn't, this is the Week 14 bye is the latest in team history.
Oh, that's great.
December 8th is
piling
the
it on, Mark.
latest ever. All right, we're just getting started. Analysis of this, angry reaction, criticism of the NFL. We'll have more coming your way. Stay with us as we continue our schedule release special here on our website.
You're watching the 2024 Schedule Release Special, brought to you by Toyota.
All right, we continue our schedule release special here, and with Rick Ritter and Alex Glaze. We're now joined by Baltimore Banner sports columnist Kyle Goon. You read his work regularly, we know, because he's irresistible in that manner. The man's very talented. And he probably has the subscriptions to Prime, Amazon Prime, and Netflix, so he can watch all the NFL games now.
He's got them all, I can tell.
Kyle, how are you, brother?
Good, good. Pretty soon you're going to need 17 different subscriptions to watch all 17 Ravens games.
Yeah.
I can feel it.
Yeah, keep cutting the cord and then having to re-up subscriptions
Exactly.
everywhere. That's what we get. All right, Kyle, you're a primetime guy, so I know you got your eye on some of these primetime matchups, including opening week against the Chiefs. We've talked about that a little bit here. Dive on in with your thoughts.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like last year at the AFC Championship, except we have 5 months to digest it and think about the matchup that's going to happen. I mean, I'm eager to see that one. I think it's another shot for Lamar Jackson to kind of go through what happened last year. It's going to be the debut of Derrick Henry. It seems like it's unlikely that the Ravens are going to forget to run the ball in the second half of this game. The debut of Zach Orr as the defensive coordinator. And we're going to see how the Ravens offensive line holds up, rebuilt, going against Kansas City's Chris Jones. But obviously everyone likes the quarterback duel, Lamar versus Patrick. I'd like to see what Lamar Jackson, who's a lot lighter apparently this offseason, is going to look like in that Week 1 matchup.
Kyle, there's no arguing it as a football fan. What Houston did last year, DeMeco Ryans' first-year head coach, unprecedented, just the way he turned that team around. C.J. Stroud, rookie quarterback, and then you go out and you add a guy like Joe Mixon. You bring in Stephon Diggs, adding to that offense, also on defense as well. Christmas Day matchup, they got to go to Houston. That's the game that's going to be on Netflix. Another rematch in terms of a playoff matchup that they had last year. And Houston kept it close in the first half during the postseason. Obviously, the Ravens pulled away. What do you make of that matchup on the big holiday?
Yeah, I love, as you're kind of pointing out, that the skill that Houston has added around C.J. Stroud. I think there is an effect of you get your second year in the league and maybe teams have sort of a better scouting report of you and a better understanding of, how you're going to be deployed. But as we've seen, CJ is kind of ready for the bright lights. And I also wonder about the Ravens' rest. I believe they're coming off a short week. It's a Wednesday game, not to mention a holiday game. So there's always, a lot of stuff leading up, off the field for these guys, I'm sure, in their personal lives. So I think there's a lot of factors that are really going to stress the Ravens in that game that have not that much to do with the actual matchups of players.
Well, you touched on it, Kyle, and I railed earlier because I just think it's ridiculous. And I'm not speaking for John Harbaugh, but I'm sure he will speak his piece about this. They are playing 3 games in 10 days around that Wednesday, Christmas Day game. And I've said it, and I believe, for the league to say they care about player safety, that doesn't indicate it to me. This is a show. Everybody makes money. They play when they're supposed to play, and they will. But just your thoughts about any NFL team, any football team at any level playing 3 games in 10 days.
Yeah, it's ludicrous, and I honestly just think that Roger Goodell, as a commissioner, has a culture of not really caring. I mean, the NFL is a grinder. The NFL always has guys who are willing to step in when somebody gets hurt or somebody, has to miss games. And that, I think Roger Goodell, especially as we're looking ahead to a future where, hey, maybe there's no preseason, maybe there's no time for guys to kind of warm up into the season. I don't love preseason games, but I recognize that football people view them as a necessity. And we're moving toward a world where Roger Goodell, for the sake of making the most on the bottom line, is going to go that way. And I think the schedule is just another example. I mean, a late bye week, as you mentioned, a record late bye week. It's just not stacking up for the Ravens in terms of just how these dates are arranged.
Kyle, last one for you, and then we'll get you out of here. Everyone was also looking for when the Horror Bowl was going to be. We finally know. John, 3-0 against his brother Jim, with Jim returning to the NFL now. Do you see anything changing, or is John going to keep that upper hand on?
I think it's going to be the biggest challenge is going to be just keeping straight. Okay, who's a Raven and who's a Charger? Because you got GM Joe Ortiz, and you got Gus Edwards, and you got Ben Mason, you got Greg Roman calling plays. I mean, the Chargers have taken so much of their DNA, and if you want to call it Ravens DNA, I think of it maybe as Harbaugh DNA, a little family sharing. So I think that's the most interesting aspect of this game. I mean, the Chargers are going to have a great quarterback in Justin Herbert, obviously, but they're probably going to look like the Ravens Greg Roman teams of old, of just battering ram style football in certain aspects. So I think it's going to be physical, and I think it could be a really awkward Thanksgiving 3 days later. Imagine those two sitting down, maybe in California, for a meal after, I don't know, John goes up 4-0. That's going to be a little weird, I think.
Well, I think one thing is clear, as you have chronicled and we have looked at, you've got a columnist's dream on a number of these matchups. So I know you'll be spinning it and putting out some good stuff at the Baltimore Banner, as you do always. Kyle Goon, really good to hear from you. Thanks so much. We'll catch up with you again soon.
Thank you, guys.
All right, that's Kyle Goon. Catch him at the Baltimore Banner, and we'll continue here. Stay with us.
You're watching the 2024 Schedule Release Special, brought to you by Toyota.
All right, we continue our look at the Ravens' schedule release. Again, we knew the opponents. That was known. Now the arrangement of the opponents, and I think interesting, the AFC North race really takes hold around Halloween. Like, 5 of the last 10 games are against the AFC North. So division heavy down the stretch. The 2 Pittsburgh matchups, they don't play the Steelers until November the 17th, then again on that Saturday the 21st. Again, guys, this is a different. Pittsburgh drafted heavy on the O-line and got 2 new quarterbacks. This is not the 2 yards in a cloud of dust team.
No.
This is a team that's going to maybe I mean, they booted their offensive coordinator finally. Is this a legit Steelers team in terms of maybe scoring points?
They're always legit, whether they score points or not. They're always tough. The thing that stands out to me when we're talking about the division, last year it was just set up so perfectly with all the home division games on the back end of the schedule.
Yeah.
Now you don't really have that. It's kind of spread out a little bit. I mean, it's just a brutal schedule.
They already had a solid defense. We know that. And Tomlin always coaches well. You're not going to get the Russell Wilson that you had in Denver. This will be a better Russell Wilson, a motivated Russell Wilson, perhaps with more talent around him than he had in Denver. I think the Steelers are going to be a solid team this year. I mean, it's never a layover in the AFC North especially. And I think that the Steelers are going to be an improvement.
All right, I'll just say it. Is Deshaun Watson good? Do we know? Because I know he's back now, but it's been a couple of years now, right? I mean, we're talking about how quarterback heavy the division is. I mean, is he the worst in the division? Is he the worst quarterback in the division?
Hey, he beat the Ravens here in Baltimore with a broken shoulder.
That is true.
Oh, come on. Don't take me back there. Don't take me back there.
That game and he played great that game.
He did in the fourth quarter.
And that was the last game he played.
And we forget because of how great Joe Flacco did. We forget about that game and what he did.
No. The Ravens should be legitimately prepared for this guy being at his best because they saw him play very well against them on their home field.
Yeah.
So if he's healthy and they get their running back in Chubb, I mean, this is a pretty good – listen, this is a division that has some scoring potential.
You just brought that memory back. I had blocked that out of my memory.
Okay.
It was one of those things where it was like a repressed memory. As soon as you said come back fourth, I was like, oh no, I do.
You keep watching the Flacco highlights.
Well, listen, because Flacco tore it up. It's hard to. It's easy to forget when
and let's not forget about Cincinnati and what they can do when healthy. Okay.
We saw what happens when they don't have their quarterback.
Yeah.
I would say that happens to every team that doesn't have their quarterback.
Right.
Joe Burrow he's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL because he's that good. And we assume he's healthy. They assume he's healthy. The Ravens best assume he's healthy because when he is, he can be pretty good against the Ravens, who, under their prior defensive coordinator, held them in some pretty good check, though.
The Steelers scare me, though.
Steelers scare you?
The Bengals I'm worried about, obviously. Mike Tomlin, there's just something about him.
We were all throwing out records, too. And to me, when you look at the losses, I think you're going to split against Cincinnati and you're going to split against Pittsburgh.
Of course.
I think that's just the way that it's going to go down. I'm not sure if that's much of a surprise to anybody.
Back to the Pittsburgh matchup, one name we didn't mention was Patrick Queen. What do you guys think about
I'll defer to Alex on that.
Go right at him. We saw what he was when Roquan wasn't standing right next to him, so I'm not worried about Patrick.
You know what? You said it best, too. I want to point that out. A lot of questions on the defense. Let's call it what it is right now. And a lot of great offenses on this schedule. Again, you're talking 10 playoff teams from last season. Who's going to step up on this defense, especially in the secondary? Because Kansas City at times last year made it look easy.
Nate Wiggins, I'm looking forward.
He's going to have
I'm looking forward to seeing him step right into it, line up with Jamar Chase, line up with George Pickens.
Devontae Adams.
Line up with those guys that we're going to need to take away a guy. I think he is that kind of corner that can match up with some of these guys. I know he's a rookie. I put a lot of pressure, but no pressure. But hey, we need you to be ready to go right now.
Opportunity.
I think interesting that as we talk about how this Ravens defense, which was the best in the league last year, has lost its coordinator and some key players. They draft defensive back first round. They got a new defensive coordinator, and the Chiefs, who were a pretty high-powered offense, draft wide receiver. Also signed Marquise Brown.
Oh, Hollywood 1,000-yard season's incoming. We know that, right?
The rich get richer. Yeah, I mean, it's
just the way it's going to be in this script.
This should be fun. It better be fun. It's a Ravens schedule. We now have it. And now you've got our thoughts on it. And you'll get to see at least 8 of the games.
Tell them that's more than anybody
WJZ.
else. As always, we got you covered.
And remember, too, you might need Netflix and Amazon Prime. What's the other one? What am I missing?
I mean, there's a Hulu game. There's a Peacock game.
You can't even keep up. It's all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, we know you got all the streaming services anyway, so you're not worried about it.
I was borrowing one of your passwords. I'm going to bum it off you guys. What do you mean?
Don't look at me. I asked my wife when the Orioles are on Apple TV, I said, do we got that? Yeah. What am I doing here? What is this? Here's another look at the schedule. The AFC North opposition. Ravens, Browns, again, back heavy, loaded with AFC North games when it gets cold. Look at that, January 4th or the 5th. The regular season finale in Baltimore. Could be a playoff berth on the line. Could be a division title. Let's hope so. I love that.
Prediction, record. Let's go down the line.
Because of the questions on defense and how other teams look so much better on offense, I'm saying they're going to be a playoff team at 10-7.
Okay.
Win the division, 14 wins.
14
Whoa.
wins. Wow.
Okay.
14 wins. And you know that I'm a fan, but like I'm also a realistic fan. I'm looking at that schedule.
No, you're not.
I'm realistic.
Mark, tell him.
I'm realistic.
That's okay.
Tell him.
I hope I'm wrong.
What do you? I mean,
I'm gonna go 11 and. I'm gonna go 11 and 6.
I'll just say this. The last 2 times they led the league in victories, the playoffs didn't work out for them.
Yep. All right.
Just get in and play better in January. That's what we need. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching the 2024 Schedule Release Special on CBS News Baltimore.